Hello and welcome. This is Ideagen TV. Today I am pleased as always to welcome Sheri Hashemi, Principal Engineer at Phantom Work Boeing. Welcome, Sheri.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me again.
So glad to have you.
Yeah, can we redo this?
Yeah.
I'm touching my face. Like, that's like not what you're supposed to do in COVID. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, not a problem. We'll just take it right from the top. All right, hold on. All right, keep you all set?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hello and welcome. This is Ideagen TV. Today I am happy as always to welcome Sheri Hashemi, Principal Engineer at Phantom Work Boeing. Welcome, Sheri.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so glad to have you here.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be able to introduce Dr. Fariba Alamdari, former VP at Boeing, and talking about feedback and how to incorporate that into your personal development and make yourself more resilient. Dr. Alamdari.
Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are, and thank you very much for asking me to come and contribute to your great program. And thanks to you, Sheri.
Absolutely. And we had chatted about this book that you're working on, and you had mentioned that and I thought that would be a good item to really dig into, to get a little more conversation on it, to help folks as they go through their personal development and work on their resiliency strategies.
Yeah. I'm writing a book focused mainly on providing some tools and techniques to other people who may want to know more or to remind themselves of how they can progress especially in their professional life. And feedback, giving or receiving, is part of it, because often we hear we get advice, be more confident, be positive, many adjectives we use, but like anything in life, we want to know how do we do that? And that's what the book is about. And as I said, receiving and giving feedback is part of it.
Most excellent. I know sometimes I'm not quite comfortable in asking for feedback because I might not know the person very well, or I might not want to know the answer if I end up getting the request for the feedback. And so, why do you think that feedback is important?
I always saw feedback as excuse me. I always saw feedback as a gift, with some caveat. When it's given thoughtfully and based on care and compassion. So it helps the other person to course correct and become better version of themselves. And we have to always remember, giving feedback, as I said, again, if it's thoughtful, if it's based on compassion and care, it puts the feedback giver in a very uncomfortable position, especially if it's constructive feedback. So they're putting themselves in that position to make us better. If we have that mindset, then we receive the feedback much better. We ponder and reflect on it, and often it makes us a better person.
Fantastic. So as a receiver of those gifts of feedback, what would you say is key when you're on the receiving end of feedback that you may or may not have requested?
I think if you are receiving feedback, you need to practice a few things. One, I would say listen carefully and try to comprehend what the other person is telling you. Don't take it personal. Don't immediately start thinking that, oh, how do I respond? How do I rationalize my behavior or whatever I'm getting feedback on? Rather than doing that, practice like out of body sort of feeling. This is not personal. This person is putting, him or herself in a position to make me better. So listen carefully. And I would also say that take notes, because when you're receiving feedback, often people become emotional. So take a note to make sure you capture everything, positive or negative. And then when the person has finished, ask for example. Say, can you tell me or remind me of a situation when I behaved this way or said something that way? And don't interrupt. Just, I say, listen and try to be calm. And we all have different techniques to become calm. Take a deep breath. Again, remind yourself this is goodness. And then often two things happen. Either you agree with what they say or you don't agree. If you agree, be brave enough to thank the feedback giver and say, now I can see your point. And if you have any suggestions for me, I really appreciate it. You don't need to give it to me right now. I'm happy to meet again if your time allows. But I want to focus on this trait that I am, exhibiting. And ask them, if you see me repeating this behavior, please remind me. Don't think, oh, I said it once. Help me. So this is if you agree. If you don't agree, again, thank them, but share your thoughts about your rationale behind that behavior or situation. And again, ask them to let you to digest this, and maybe you have another meeting to go over it. But the last thing you want is to become confrontational. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So these are sort of some key thoughts that I have around that, and I have practiced this. And I remember a few times in my career, I had to have conversation with people in my team that really their heart wasn't in what they were doing. And the work was showing that. So it was a bit challenging to tell them and give them this feedback. They are all highly educated, professional, proud of their achievement, rightly so. But what they were doing, it wasn't what they loved. So, I had to do this, and also I have been at receiving end of receiving feedback. Again, I give you a small or a short example. When I joined Boeing, coming from academia to corporate America, although we worked in academia with a lot of industry participant, airline, airports, aerospace companies, and used to presenting to them. But, when I came to Boeing, sometimes I was given 5 minutes to give all the highlights to our CEO and his team. So I had to be really quick, as opposed to often having much longer time. So after my first presentation, a colleague came and said, you have to remember, these people are not here to learn. They are here, you share information, and then based on that, they need to take action. So you have to have the right mindset. They're not a student, or they are not, industry executives who come to learn. And that was a great feedback. So that person wanted me to be better, rather than saying, no, they need to change and, or bring excuses.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. That's a really great example of what feedback can even look like, because I think it spans the full spectrum from, how you present yourself to how you are presenting the information and exchanging. I think that's all, encompassing in the feedback. And as you were saying, for the giving part, what would you say is key for giving feedback, solicited or unsolicited, if you feel it necessary, to reach out of somebody with that compassion and kindness you had talked about? What would you say is key for giving feedback?
Again, like what I said at the beginning, it has to be thoughtful. It has to come from care and compassion, and it shows. It's not to bring someone and tell them what's wrong with them. So I would always say that if you want to give feedback, especially constructive one, choose a place that is calm and safe. Don't bring people, sit them at the other side of the table and as if you are interrogating them. No. A calm and safe environment. I sometimes use that we have a pond where our offices were at Boeing, and also back in England where I was in academia. Again, we had nice surroundings. Sometimes I went with people for a walk, and while we are walking, I give them feedback. So it's a nice, calm environment. When you give feedback, bear the personality of person in your mind. Some people get more emotional, or they are more sensitive. Adjust your style, just based on what you know about them. With some people, they say, just put all these things, tell me, and go straight into the point. And as I said, some other people are more sensitive, and you have to gently come into your point. I often remind them that the reason I'm going to give this feedback because I really care, and I know they have the potential to be, to be better of themselves. And tell them, listen, right now I am not feeling comfortable because, I feel a bit anxious how you think about what I'm going to tell you, but I am happy to put myself in that position if it's useful to you. So, some kind of background that they see, and it has to come from heart. You can't fake it. I often start with positive traits or behavior. I remind them what they've done well or good. And then I will go into the areas that I think they would benefit from some improvement. One thing that is key is that you cannot bring up one incident and say, you said this and that time. You have to look for a theme that you see this person is a trait that this person is exhibiting. Because sometimes all of us can make mistake or say sometimes things at the wrong place or wrong time. But if you see something is happening over time, that is a better way of giving feedback. And then you need to have some example, a few, to support what you, the theme you're bringing up. I give you an example at the end. Also, allow enough time to hear their thoughts, their rationale. And then when they're talking, don't interrupt or justify, oh, I didn't mean this, just let them talk. And if they agree that, oh my God, often people do that, say, oh, thank you, I didn't know I do this thing, and I didn't know I have this kind of impact. So then you might have in your mind how they can improve. So let me give you an example. I'm trying to think which one is the best. I actually gave feedback, or I have given feedback to people who were superior to me. So giving feedback is not just about to your team member or your peers. You can give feedback to your leaders, something that is bothering you, something that is making every day going to work difficult. So in my case, I actually invited the person to lunch, and the person said, oh, what a good idea, sometimes we have lunch together. I said, yes. So after we ordered, I mentioned that I have some feedback for you. And of course, being my superior, the person was a bit surprised. So I told them the theme. Usually it was about putting down everyone's work or ideas and then sort of talking how important this person thought is. And asked me to give some examples. I genuinely had 10 examples. I chose one that was directed at me and two that directed at somebody else. And I said, I have 10, but I'm going to share 3. And I was trying to be calm. I had a smile. And I really had the situation clearly in mind. And after that, this person thanked me. He said, you're right. And I'm sorry, I didn't know I'm doing this. And asked me to remind this person if it happens again. And from there on, our relationship even improved. And this person could see that I'm trying to highlight something that he can improve.
That's fantastic. And great example of a very tense situation when you felt feedback was necessary, and the steps and the ability to give the examples. I think sometimes, we're trying to be the best versions of ourselves, but we might not always know what that could be. And we are our toughest critics. So being able to know someone thinks that there's more for us is also, I think, encouraging and a good way of looking at feedback as well, too. In regards to the tense situations, an example you gave, is there a little roadmap that you have of how to navigate those situations?
I think being calm and collected is very important, because sometimes people, they just lose it and they become very aggressive. I had one situation when one of my team members, really a nice person, but I provided some feedback and he got upset. And I knew he would, because nice person, but a bit temperamental. Mm-hmm. But I kept my voice, tried to keep my voice at same level. And before going to the feedback session, I reminded myself this might happen. And whatever this person says or react, just don't get engaged in that game. Keep calm, keep your voice at the same level, keep your mannerism right. And in that situation, when the person got very sensitive and very emotional, I said to him, look, I wanted to give you this feedback because I cared for you. I understand you don't like what you heard. Let's stop here and pick it up on another day. And in fact, I remember it was a Friday, and I told him, let's meet Monday morning first thing in the morning, and you tell me what you are going to do about this. And then we go from there. If you are going to course correct, we have a path. If you don't, we have another path. And I share what those paths are. And that's how we did. And over the weekend, I'm sure he had time to think about it. He came in Monday morning and he started, I said, no. First thing, you tell me which path. Then we go from there, you know. And he decided to course correct. He said, I understand. I had time to think about it. So this is, you know, based on my experience. But keeping calm and collected is the key, because if you get engaged, the person gets emotional, you get emotional, you may say something that is not right. And then this other person pick on that, and that becomes the focal point. You have to choose your words, you have to keep your voice, your manner, so that there is no fault in that, because that would derail you from what you are trying to achieve.
I really like that. You know, it's something Kim Smith from IBM has said on a handful of occasions of, you know, create the space and have the grace to work through the situation, and giving that amount of time is space. And then having the grace of understanding you've got a person, another human being, trying to stay calm, and then focusing on the key points, I think are really, really great highlights, especially in tense situations. And as we are trying to navigate, you know, this hybrid environment of, you know, in face-to-face or mask-to-mask or, you know, screen-to-screen, as we're figuring out how to change and, you know, develop our communication skills. I think these are really important to help fold in on that. Is there any other parting words that you would like to leave on resilience and feedback and growth?
I stick with the feedback for the moment, since this is our focus. Two things. The timing of feedback is very important. Sometimes I've seen you know, leaders giving feedback on people's performance at the time of, you know, at the end of the year, or when, you know, they are, you know, twice a year or something, that the, you know, the employee goes with the manager or leader for performance discussion. I think that's a bad practice. If you see something, and as I said, you see a trend, it's better to give feedback sooner than later. I've always been fortunate to coach or mentor people, and one of their one of their complaint is that, why didn't my leader or manager tell me this before, when I had time to do something about it? So depending on the situation, timely feedback is very useful. Another thing, when you're giving feedback and they say, that's not how I wanted to show up, or that's not what I wanted to do, or that's not what I did in my head, I always say, okay, it could be a absolutely real truth that you accept and you say, yes, I made a mistake, or the way you came across created this perception. It could be real or it could be a perception. In both cases, you need to correct it, because creating wrong perception is not good for you. So these are a couple of comments that I would like to add. When you see people sometimes disagree that was in there, great. But the impact you make is not how you see it.
That's excellent. I think we all have an impact, and a drop in a bucket is going to have a ripple regardless of how small or big that drop is. And we all have an impact when we show up. And I think that's a really great point to bring. I cannot wait for the finished product of your book, and I look forward to being able to talk about that in the future. Thank you again so much for your time and discussing feedback on giving and receiving. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much, Sheri, and thank you very much to the Ideagen team for letting me share my thoughts. I'm not saying everything I say is right, but these are based on my career experiences and my thoughts.